We look like gentrified Stoke right now. It really is Odegaard, and then a lot of lads who like winning headers.
However, when we were told to be excited, you'll be happy at the end of the window, and then it's Raheem the Dream is our actual main signing. That is a real underwhelming signing.
It just feels bad because it's coming on the back of results domestically that haven't been so good.
There's always been a little bit of a fear that Arteta as a manager is maybe a bit more David Moyes than he is Pep Guardiola. Listen, we talk about Cole Palmer turning up in big games. Saka loves a Super Sunday.
Two defeats in a week for the Arsenal, but there's no time to feel sorry for ourselves. We've got a huge game against Chelsea on Sunday. I'm Talia Lazarus, and this is Inside Gooners. Joining me today to analyse a difficult week for Arsenal are football writer Nicky Bandini, Arsenal YouTuber Dan Potts, and comedian and Arsenal podcaster Jacob Hawley. So, welcome everybody. I wish I could welcome you all onto the show with more positive news and not back-to-back defeats, but we're going to go past that. We are going to talk quickly about last night's game. But I think, it wasn't exactly the result we wanted, but it wasn't such a bad performance. It was relatively improved.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Inter are no small team to play against. Obviously, been in the Champions League final 2 years ago. They are far and away the best team in Italy right now. That's not close. Perhaps they were not using their absolute strongest 11 for this match. I was surprised by some of the choices made by Simone Inzaghi, but they're still an extremely competitive team in any game, and the fact that they defended as well as they did in the second half. I think all of these things can be looked at in isolation. It just feels bad because it's coming on the back of results domestically that haven't been so good.
Yeah, I think potentially what we've done is lowered our standards, particularly if we think that's a good performance, because I've got to be real with you guys, I didn't think it was a great performance last night. Defensively, we can say fair play. I think we've definitely looked at that. Against a good side, we've got to be real with ourselves. I think going to the San Siro, the atmosphere is always tricky. But they made 5 changes. It wasn't the best Inter Milan side. And going forward at the moment, I think Arsenal are struggling. I really do. And I feel like that if you're going to look at our style of play at the moment, lumping balls into the box and being over-reliant on Saka with no one to attack it is not the way that I want to see us playing football. So I have to look at the performances of late and see that we're missing something big. And I feel like there's definitely going to be question marks over our summer transfer window now, for sure. Because for me, when that transfer window shut, I thought, that's not what I wanted to see. Raheem Sterling coming in last day of the season, someone who is now not trusting to play. I'm looking at it thinking, what have we got in the attack at the moment? And it's not good enough, in my opinion.
Yes, I think it's funny, like the context in which this game comes. We've lost a couple in the league. We don't look creative enough. I think it's funny because I think there's a world in which, not long ago we'd have looked at a performance like this where I'd agree with Dan. We didn't create much, but we also didn't concede too many chances. I think you could look at it and say that's a spirited performance away in a really busy week that's bookended by 2 difficult away games in the Premier League. And you could say, well, you know what, we didn't get embarrassed at the San Siro. It's a big ground to go to. I think the context of it is we've grown up under Arsene Wenger football, right? Where we have 19 attacking midfielders, no one can win a header, and you quite like the idea of replacing Sami Nasri with Thomas Rosicky with Alex Hleb and the rest of them. We're looking at this and we don't recognise it. We look like gentrified Stoke right now. Like it's something that we're not used to as Arsenal fans. And to go back to the January transfer window, we came into this season with 1 attacking midfielder. And don't get me wrong, he's the best one in Europe. He creates more chances than anyone else in Europe. But God forbid he gets an injury, which hasn't really happened the last couple of years with him, but he has this time round. And we're looking around and we're going, who can receive the ball on the half-turn and attack? Who can take a shot from outside the box? Who can play a through ball? And I've seen so much criticism of our wingers, of Saka and Martinelli. I don't know what you want them to do. The amount of times I see them on the touchline, no one anywhere near them. I don't know if there was one overlap last year. I don't know if there was one overlapping run last night from a fullback. And I thought the fullbacks were half decent, by the way. I thought Timber did a good job. White isn't fit. But I think the job that our wingers have got as our only form of attack right now, it's unfair on them to get judged the way they do. And that comes down to the manager.
It's definitely crazy what's being asked of Bukayo right now. Saka is out there and every single team knows, because Odegaard's not there, every single team knows that that's the main threat they need to guard against. And you saw how Inter set up, very compact in the middle. And look, again, got to acknowledge, great players in there. Hakan Çalhanoğlu, I thought, was doing a great job of mopping things up in front. But forcing Arsenal into those wide areas. And then again, the team selection. Maybe it's not their first choice team selection, but it's also a calculated team selection to not start Di Marco, who's the more attacking player, bring in Darmian and just have him tracking Bukayo going everywhere, and then having the backup with Bissek, who's a really explosive player and can break when you need him to, but also can just run with someone when you need him to. So I think that deliberateness in how other teams are setting up is something that Arsenal need to acknowledge and think about, and how you adjust to that. And that is where I do agree with Dan. There is a lack of options, it feels like. With Odegaard gone, it feels like there's not enough different varieties that Arsenal have got to go to.
It's been that way for years, by the way, the Saka thing. I remember 2 years ago talking about rotational fouling. I remember 2 years ago, I remember Newcastle coming to the Emirates and there was a ball draw. I think the ball was in play for about 22 minutes. And I remember then going, wow, they've got 3 players on Saka. It's still there. He's one of the most proficient wingers in Europe. He's got the hardest job in Europe. Like the amount of England fans who want to compare him to Foden, compare him to Palmer. But when he goes to St George's Park, he must feel like a kid from a tough school in London who meets a load of kids who go to private school. Because Foden and Palmer have got so much easier lives than him. They get rotated in and out of 11. They get players helping them. They've got forwards making runs in the box. Saka's doing all of that himself.
That's where you've got to look more on the role of Kai Havertz at the moment. And this is not me having a dig at Kai Havertz. I think he's been great since he's come in the back end of January, scoring pretty much a goal every other game for Arsenal. But at the moment, his role has completely changed. I've been asked to drop so deep at the moment. He's been asked to go and potentially hold Saka's hand over at the right-hand side. I need this guy in the box. I need to see him as a 9. And it seems to me that there's this reluctant opportunity to leave him in the box and cause a nuisance. We always wanted to drop him. Even like yesterday, we brought on Gabriel Jesus. He became the number 9. Havertz drops back into the midfield. Every time we have played Havertz in this deeper role, we haven't got through the game. We lost to Villa doing it. We lost to Bayern doing it. And lo and behold, we lost last night. So why are we not using him as the focal point and being that guy who can cause havoc and cause nuisance in the box? It's beyond me. And if you're not going to have him, we clearly need to do something more in the summer transfer window to replace him or upgrade on him.
He was really the one who had the best. It was at the heart of the best chances last night. That ball to the back post in the second half, and also the shot blocked by Bissek at the end.
So then, Dan, is the biggest issue at the moment are struggling to break down low and mid blocks?
I think it's one of the options that we need to look at. I also think that it's a taste of Arsenal's own medicine, because I think that that's what we've been trying to do, right? So actually last night I looked at Inter Milan's defending and thought, I recognise Arsenal there. I recognised Arsenal watching Inter Milan defensively, and we didn't have an answer for it. So it's like, wow, we need to do better at that. And I think that there's definitely a question mark on what can come on from the bench. You know, there's Jesus at the moment. Raheem Sterling, does anyone know what's happened to him? Has he given up on him already? Like, is that a signing that we maybe shouldn't have gone for in the summer? Maybe, who knew? But you look at that opportunity and you think, right, what else is there to bring on? We're now bringing on Zinchenko to win us games? Is this what we've got to? 5 years in, £700 million deep? Come on, man, we need to be doing better than that. And I look at the summer transfer window, and right now, I don't see what Mourinho's brought in to upgrade on Nwaneri. I don't see what Calafiori is going to do in this role when he's injury prone. And then I look at what we've done with Raheem Sterling, and I'm thinking, we were actually linked with some really good players in the summer. We were linked with the likes of Victor Gyökeres, with Alexander Isak, with Nico Williams. In attacking midfield, Eze was one that was mentioned. Pedro Neto was another player who was mentioned, obviously went to Chelsea in the end. And we came out of it with Sterling, and I think now we're looking at that thinking, yeah, maybe that wasn't a very good transfer window, because I'm looking at the bench and I'm thinking, all of our players are back. We've literally got Odegaard back now as well. We've got Tomiyasu and Calafiori that are injured. And that's it. This is what we've got to work with. So at the moment, I think that we've got to try and find a different way of playing, a different way of trying to break this down, because we cannot be relying on Saka to just be whipping balls in and hope that Gabriel gets on the end of one of them.
I really want to stick up for Calafiori. He's injured. He's a good player. You just haven't seen enough of him yet. He's such a good footballer.
I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying that, was that a great way of spending £40 million that potentially could have been spent in another area?
It's a surprising way. Like, because I really rate him. I think he's brilliant. But I also did say at the time, as someone who watches this game a lot, I don't see that this is Arsenal's biggest area of need. He's someone who...
That's my point.
Yeah, who will give you something. But I completely get where you're coming from. What Arsenal need is on a different part of the pitch.
It's funny, because we have got about 7 left-backs now.
Yes, yeah.
And none of them can stay fit.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's our
tactic. Just get enough.
That's the transfer tactic. Every summer, buy another left-back who can manage about 20 games a season, and eventually someone will stay fit. The thing with Calafiori, I mean, you've probably seen a lot more of him than I have, Nicky, but I think he gives us, in terms of our backline, he gives us the creativity that we're missing at the moment. And I think it's actually been underrated how much we're missing him right now. I don't know how injury prone he's going to be. I don't know whether he's going to manage the rigours of the Premier League. If you look at someone like Tomiyasu, who seemed to manage the pace of Italy without getting injured so many times, he can't do it in the Premier League. So I think that probably is a little bit of a concern. For me, I agree with Dan about the Sterling signing and the Merino signing. And the Merino signing is a really interesting one, because I think it's less about the player. I don't want to pick on the player too much.
He got punched in the face last night.
He got punched in the face.
We're all here talking him down.
Gabriel Magalhaes jumped on him in the summer and done his shoulder. Like, he's been in the wars. But I think what it represents is maybe something that a lot of Arsenal fans somewhat fear with Arteta, which is a pragmatism. A leaning into winning duels and winning physical battles, but maybe not focusing on the attacking part of the pitch. I think I saw a stat the other day. We've spent £70 million on forwards in 5 years. And if I try and list off those forwards who we've bought, you're thinking of players like Willian, Trossard, who, great super sub. I'm not sure he should be starting games the way we are at the moment. Jesus, who, I've got to be honest, I've got some concerns about the way he's been managed, Jesus. 2 years ago, he was one of the best forwards in the league. And in terms of creativity, we talk about a team that lacks creativity right now. 2 years ago, when he first came into the squad as a false nine for Arsenal, he's the most creative player on the pitch. He had the highest number of expected assists in the Premier League back then. Where's he gone? And why have we lost him so much? And why have we moved him around the pitch so much? And why at 275 grand a week does he look so unmotivated? And I think that's what the Mikel Merino signing, that's why it scares Arsenal fans. Because we're waiting for Arteta to buy another Odegaard. Like, you look around the league, Man City can lose De Bruyne. They've got Bernardo Silva. Even Liverpool, they've got more than one attacking midfielder. McAllister, Szoboszlai, there's a few of them there. You know, Harvey Elliott. Like, at Arsenal, you go, it really is Odegaard, and then a lot of lads who like winning headers. Even if you think of what our perfect starting 11 is, if everyone's fit, it's probably Declan Rice at left 8. Is that the dream? Does that remind us of Pep football? When it used to be De Bruyne and David Silva in a midfield with Fernandinho? It doesn't feel like that. And I think that's the concern for Arsenal fans, is there's always been a little bit of a fear that Arteta as a manager is maybe a bit more David Moyes than he is Pep Guardiola.
God.
It's a fear. I'm not saying it. Look, we scored more goals last season than we ever have in our history. There's a lot of corners.
Yeah.
Is all I'll say.
We had a lot of corners last night, actually. And let's go back to last night's game. We're obviously talking about Merino being hit in the face, but then he gave away the penalty. I mean, that penalty was quite harsh, no?
It's really harsh, but it's the rule. It's a stupid rule, and it's not the rule that's applied in the Premier League, because the Premier League has brought in this idea of proximity and changed how they officiate those situations. But that is the rule across the rest of Europe, and it's one of those that's infuriating to watch, I think, across all of Europe as well, by the way, not just in England or in Britain. People look at that and think, well, there's not a lot you can do about it, but it is the rule. So it's one of those where I feel like the grumble is not... The grumble can't be, oh, that shouldn't have been given, because it should be given. The referee's done the right thing. The grumble perhaps is, well, yes, but at the other end, Arsenal didn't get their penalty where Merino got punched in the face.
Look, I agree that it's the rule. I think it's ridiculous that we can play this same sport in a different league and it won't be given as a penalty. I don't quite get that at all. I feel like it needs to be a level of consistency throughout the sport, whether it's in Europe or outside of Europe. I think it just needs to be in football, right? But that's not the reason that we didn't do enough up top. For me, you know, we've given away the penalty. Cool. Do something about it. And for me, I just feel that we're so slow at the moment. I feel like we need a little bit of an injection of pace at Arsenal. We've got quick players. We've got the Martinellis and the Sakas of this world, but I think we're over-relying on them to cross the balls in to a Kai Havertz in there, or to, of course, our centre-halves. And I think that's because what we've gone from is potentially the Arteta era, the Arsene Wenger era of being very technically gifted, very lightweight. I think what we've got now is you've definitely installed an amount of power, and we tower over teams now in the tunnel. The problem with that is we need some athleticism in there as well. We can't just all be just stood there over 6 foot waiting to head the ball. Like, for me, we need more than that. So, look, I think there's definitely Arteta's side that I've looked at and appreciated. 22-23 were absolutely electric. The end of last season, we were absolutely blitzing teams. That's what I need to see. Got to get that back somehow. And I feel now that we've just gone too far with some of the physical attributes of the Merinos of this world, Kai Havertz, Ben White, Declan Rice. They're all over 6 foot. They're very physically imposing. We've got great attributes physically. Now we've got to actually get on the ball and actually try and move forward, because the Sakas and Martinellis and Odegaards of this world, they've done it before. So let's bring that back.
So then who were your favourite players of last night? Pick one each.
I'll go first, that's all right. I'm going to go with Timber. I thought Timber did a fantastic job last night. I don't think that's his position, left back. I think when he came in last season, a few of us imagined it might be his position. I think he clearly looks more comfortable on the right-hand side of the pitch. But I just thought he did a brilliant job, shut down defence, but also like carrying the ball forward. And that's something I think we really lack, is someone who can just carry the ball and beat a player or two. And he did that a couple of times. And I thought Timber specifically was really unfair to come out of that game last night not on the winning team.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's hard not to go with Bukayo at the moment because everything that Bukayo's trying to do, I think I appreciate more because I feel like he's trying to do more than some of the other players. I feel like we're over-relying on him and I feel like the deliveries were good last night. I feel like there was a lot of opportunities where he did put into the box. I mean, one of the greatest chances we had was from his delivery in the last couple of games, right? And the Newcastle game, obviously, Declan Rice didn't put it away and last night he delivered again. I think we are definitely better with Thomas Partey in the six, though, so I have to give him a mention as well.
Yeah.
I think for me, for Arsenal, it's Havertz. My journalist hat on, I started thinking about the Inter players deserve some credit last night, but for Arsenal, it's Havertz. I think he was the one who, in the end, was created what I thought were the best chances Arsenal had all night at the end of the game. And that's what we've just been talking about. This whole conversation is about not having enough creativity. And I think he was the one who actually did something, even if in the end he didn't manage to get a goal.
I love a fellow Havertz fan when I see one. So.
Do you guys think he's fit? Do you think he's fit at the moment, Havertz? Because he didn't go to Germany last international break, something to do with his knee. And I think all of us wanted to go, oh yeah, we're keeping players back now. We're finally doing that. And I do just wonder if he is actually injured. Because he doesn't look as sharp as he did 4 weeks ago. I don't know if you guys feel the same about that.
He came off at the very end as well, didn't he?
Which he never usually does, never usually comes off.
Well, he kind of had to. I mean, his head was an absolute mess.
Yeah, you're like, he never comes off. Yeah. I mean, he was pouring with blood.
Kind of time to come off now. Look, I think what some people are very harsh on Kai Havertz. I think there's some that don't understand what he does contribute to the side. I think it's absolutely fine to say that we need an upgrade and another striker. That's absolutely fine to say. But Havertz has got a definite place in this squad, 100%. And for me, I look at what Kai Havertz is doing right now, and it reminds me of when we have Olivier Giroud back in 2016 when the Leicester won the league and we were crying out for a striker. Like, we need a striker to help Giroud. I think that's the situation Arsenal are at now, and I'm not sure that Jesus is that guy. Maybe we need to go into January, into the summer and look at that position massively.
So then, since we last recorded, Ethan Nwaneri's stock continues to rise. There's been a clamour for him in the starting game. So do you think that we agree with this at the moment?
It's hard, isn't it? We've just been talking about this before we started. He's a teenager. I think he's the closest thing in the squad in terms of his style of play to maybe doing what Odegaard does. But how much do you want to put that on him and say, OK, we're missing maybe the most important player in the whole team other than Saka. Off you go and carry it. It's a lot of responsibility. So I think there is an onus on Mikel as the manager to manage that responsibly.
But there's two sides to this, isn't there? There's the, if you're good enough, you're old enough. And I think Ethan has proven when called upon, he's good enough to be a part of this squad, right? I look at the situation with Odegaard being out, and I think there's potentially a missed opportunity there to not give him more minutes. Now, if Trossard was absolutely flying, I'd be saying he's not getting in. Like, Trossard's absolutely balling out. I think there's been an opportunity for him to actually give a little bit more faith into him. Now, people will look back to the Cesc Fabregas situation, the Phil Foden situation. For me, the reason this is completely different is because Cesc looked ahead of him and he had Bergkamp. He looked ahead of him, he had Henry, he had Vieira next to him, he had Pires, he had Ljungberg. Ethan's looking up at Saka thinking, right, that guy's 3 years older than me. That guy over there's 2 years older than me. That guy over there, he hasn't got that. He hasn't got winners surrounding by him. Phil Foden was like that. He had KDB next to him. He had David Silva. He had Bernardo Silva. Yeah, he had Sergio Aguero ahead of him. So it was complete difference to what we're looking at now. We've got a very young team, and we've got players that I think we need now a little bit of installed of experience now and some winning mentality into this side. And I think that when Ethan's come on, and even last night, he dropped the shoulder and lit everybody up. If that would have gone in top bins, everyone would be going, wow. And I think what Mikel Arteta's got to do now is look at that and think, right, people are looking at my summer window and saying that we potentially needed, like Jacob said, somebody other than Martin Odegaard. Arteta could have shut everyone up by going, we don't need everyone, and I'm going to prove to you why. We've got this 17-year-old Ethan, and he's going to light the place up. And he hasn't done that. He's been sticking with Trossard even through some of the bad games. So I'm not sure that Arteta's got this one right, really, if I'm honest.
It's also like sometimes, invention is necessity is the mother of invention, because you've got this situation of needing to do it. It's actually not dissimilar to look across the way last night at Barcelona with another thumping win in the Champions League. A lot of their personnel decisions have been driven by, well, actually, there's no money anymore. They wanted to bring in Gundogan, they couldn't. So that was all decisions that end up with Yamal on the pitch and doing, Yamal on the pitch and doing everything that he's been doing. They've got a really young squad, which is not necessarily the squad that Hansi Flick would have chosen. But if you give kids a chance, sometimes you end up with that.
But I don't think, Arteta probably was expecting to be putting Ethan out so much, especially so early on, because obviously he didn't sit there in the summer and go, right, Odegaard's going to get injured, did he?
Maybe he should have done. I mean, that's the thing, is it is Odegaard, big gap, and then Ethan. There's no one else who does any of that stuff, and I don't think that's right. I'm going to stick my dad hat on right now. He's a boy. I don't think he can drive himself to the training ground yet. Like, seriously, I don't think we should be in a position where we're saying, right, the captain's injured, so you're up, kid. No, it's wrong. Like, at the pace he's at right now, I think Arteta's doing the right thing. He's finishing games, he's starting cup games, he's scoring goals that get us all excited. And he's going to finish this season, at the pace he's on, he's going to finish this season with more minutes in his 17-year-old season than Fabregas did, than Foden did, than Saka did. Saka was 19 years old and didn't start an FA Cup final.
Yeah,
because Maitland-Niles started instead. And that was the right thing to do. And look where Saka is now. He's 23, by the way, 6 years difference. He's a kid. He shouldn't be in this position. And if it's me, personally, I think in January, I mean, don't get me wrong, we don't have a sporting director to buy anyone yet, but if we can hire someone, in January, they have to look at that. They have to look at the fact that it's Odegaard, big gap, 17-year-old. It's wrong. At left-back, we're not talking about Miles Lewis-Skelly, are we? No one's saying it should be him because Timber's a right footer, Calafiori's in. No one's saying it should be him. So why should it be Ethan? We need to invest in that position.
So then let's turn our heads back to last weekend. I'm so sorry, we have to talk about it. How concerning was it to see our attack fail to function?
Against Newcastle?
Yes, against Newcastle.
I think the biggest concern is it's failed to function against that specific Eddie Howe team 4 times, and he does the same thing nearly every time. Joelinton goes wide, they play almost a box of 4 in midfield, 4 big lads who want to run with us and break up play in the middle of the pitch, and they leave it to the 2 attackers. And I think the really gutting thing on Saturday afternoon is the 2 attackers who they kind of left spare, Anthony Gordon and Isak. And Isak's not had a great season so far. They did look head and shoulders above what we've got on the pitch. They did look like a level above the forwards we have. And I think it's just gutting to watch that. And as Dan said, Isak's a player we've been linked to. And you watch him jumping with Saliba and Gabriel, winning that header, thundering it into the roof of the net, and you go, could that give us something? Could that have been something we needed? I look at Anthony Gordon and think the same thing, to be honest with you. I still think we're one winger short, and the pace he's got on the break, the way he can transition away from defenders, that's something we lack. Ultimately, I think Eddie Howe's had our number for a while, and what really disappointed me on Saturday, I look back to us beating them, I think it was the 24th of April 2023, right? Little Rain Man check. Away at St James's Park. We beat them. Man of the match was Jorginho that day because we didn't try and jump with them. We didn't try and beat them in duels. We said, OK, you guys want to go physical. We're going to go Arsenal. We're going to play football around you. I know we don't have Odegaard. I don't know where Jorginho is. That's really struck me this year. I don't know why we haven't lent into him because if we're talking about midfielders who can pass the ball, who can keep the possession and who can create chances in the middle of the pitch, Jorginho was doing that, and Jorginho was doing that when we were winning games 6-1 away from home last season. I don't think Declan Rice has ever looked as good in an Arsenal midfield as he did with Jorginho next to him. Where is he?
Look, it's a great point, and I think that Jorginho is definitely a player that has come in and he's been a part of the squad now. I think if we're having to lean towards Jorginho, then our midfield he's got issues at the moment, and I actually think it's the area of the midfield, the area of the pitch that isn't being spoken about enough.
Agreed.
I think that we've mucked around so much with Declan Rice in the 6. Now he's our 8. Partey's at our 6. Now he's gone to right back. Then we've got Marino coming in, who's been asked to play an attack-minded role in a number 10 to try and sort out the Odegaard thing. Trossard's been brought into the mix there. I think there's a lot of problems there. And I think going back to that Newcastle game, what was disappointing for me was the fact that Eddie Howe actually did get the better of Mikel Arteta in terms of just packing that midfield, sending us wide, and then going, we believe we can defend you out of this game, which they did. And then also what happened was the players seemed to want it more than us. I thought they won every single duel. They looked like they had more passion than us, more drive than us. And I just thought, wow, this was a Newcastle side that I actually didn't rate very highly at futsal, if I'm honest with you. And they really made us look average. And I think that has just completely knocked our confidence. We've now had to go back as far as Southampton for our last Premier League win. That felt like a year ago, right? So winning is a cure for all in football. When you win, everyone's happy, right? When you lose, when you draw, you have to look at the concerns. And there are some at the moment at Arsenal.
So do we need a system change in the Premier League?
I just think it's messy, isn't it? Because all of these things that you're saying, I'm nodding along with a lot of them, but also did win away to Tottenham, did win away to Villa, played City, Liverpool, played well in both those games. There's been lots good this season. It's sort of easy to forget that just because the last few games haven't gone great, this isn't some disaster season. Yeah, the league table looks bad, and that's partly because Liverpool are flying rather than just that Arsenal are slipping. And it's also worth reminding ourselves that Arsenal were, I think, 5 points off the top at New Year's last year and still made it very, very close. So it's too early for crisis talk, I think, and some of that is easy to fall into. Having said that, I think I saw a number earlier, and I'm going to get it wrong because I haven't got it in front of me, but I think it was 7 of the last 10 games with less than 1 expected goal from open play. There has been over-reliance, over-comfort on the fact that the set pieces have been so good. There has been an over-tendency, I think, to drift into this physicality is everything mindset because it's worked in some of these games. And I think there is something that's been a little bit lost along the way in terms of the creativity of the build-up and having more than one way to play.
I think that the set-piece situation is definitely something that we've improved upon. That's clear to see. But that needs to be a part of your game, not the whole of your game. Because when that doesn't come off, you don't win football matches, right? So that's the difference when people start to compare him to George Graham or Diego Simeone, or I saw Jose Mourinho mentioned by Jamie Carragher. I would say that's actually quite a kind of a compliment because those guys have won some unbelievable trophies. Some people might not like that style of play, but if we won the league by winning 1-0, 2-1, would anyone actually care? I wouldn't. I'd be surprised. I'd be really happy. Yes, I want to win it like Pep. I'd love to win 4 or 5-0 every game, but let's actually win games that way. When you're not winning games playing that way, that's when it's bad. That's when you look at West Ham fans under David Moyes and say, was it that great? Well, no, we didn't enjoy the football. So when we were losing, it was really bad and horrific to watch. And I think that I'm not comparing Arteta to David Moyes like Jacob has here, but I will. Yeah, there is for my liking as well. I must say that. However, I must say that I do think that should be a part of our game, not the sole part of it. And we've seen in 2022-23, like back in the last season, we can play very attractive attack style play. So I don't know where that's gone.
Yeah, I just to quickly rephrase myself. It's a fear. It's a fear that we lead into the Moyes thing and not the guy. And let's be clear. Like I think sometimes nowadays we overanalyze football so much, and we spend so much time looking for what a manager is and what they want to do. And I think ultimately it's just down to the players they put on the pitch. Ultimately, when you've got a midfield of Marino and Rice and players that are more functional, you're going to play more functional football. When you can put Odegaard on the pitch, you play pretty football. It's not that Arteta's telling them to do something that the other one isn't doing. It's just who the players are. And I'm hoping, to answer the initial question of do you think we're going to change systems, I think we've kind of been doing this 4-2-4 for the last few weeks. And that's just because we don't have our third midfielder in Odegaard. Hopefully, Odegaard, he only really got 5 or 10 minutes against Inter Milan, so I'd be surprised if he can do 90 against Chelsea. But if he can, I'd like to see us back to the 4-3-3. I'd like to see it back to being Kai really being a focal point and stretching teams. Because when he stretches teams, if he stretches teams and pulls defenders away, that creates the space in the middle of the pitch that we can exploit. When you haven't got anyone moving the centre-backs, how can you penetrate through the middle of the pitch, especially when we're talking about games like Newcastle, who want to pack that area? Bournemouth did it really well. They did it against City as well. We're not talking about bad teams who've done this to us. We should remind ourselves that. I know Newcastle haven't been great this season, but they got that result against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup, and I thought as soon as they beat Chelsea, and that was with Anthony Gordon on the right-hand side as well, I did think, right, they're ready for us now. St James's Park, it's never a happy hunting ground for us. And good teams have stopped us in the way that those good teams have stopped other teams as well. This Chelsea game is a massive opportunity for us to lay down a marker, return to what we're good at with the 4-3-3, and hopefully go into the next international break with a bit of hope.
It's must win. It's must win.
I think it's must win.
For me, this is must win.
I think it's must win.
It really is. And, we drop points here. I'm not saying I'm going to be waving white flags because it's far too early, but I think it's going to be very, very difficult to get ourselves back into this now. I really do. So I think that's an absolute must-win game.
So we're going to get into the Chelsea game later, but just quickly, actually, on Nicky and Dan's points about set pieces, I agree. We've become so reliant on set pieces. We had 3 back-to-back corners last night, one after the other, and none of them went in. None of them. And then by the third one, you're like, oh, come on, we're definitely going to get this one because we're so used to it. And then the third one didn't get in. It's like, okay, now what? And then obviously, while we are on last night, we did see the return of, is he the Messiah? We did see the return of Martin Odegaard. Has he come back in the nick of time?
It's just hard to know, isn't it? Until we see him and his fitness levels and how quickly he can get back to full fitness. It's a question we can't answer, but certainly it would be nice to see him on the pitch against Chelsea this weekend.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, last night he came on for only a few minutes. I didn't actually think he was going to get on at all. So to see him was great. I would argue maybe we could have seen him for a bit longer, but obviously he knows it better than what we do. I think he's absolutely key now. I think we've missed him more than what people give him credit for. And I think sometimes there's been the results that we've got and we potentially look at the result and think, oh, we're not missing Odegaard, we're still winning. But we are missing Odegaard. We missed his press, we missed his leadership qualities, we missed the passion, the desire and the drive. And also that weight of pass and the vision, I think is absolutely something we need. So I'm looking forward to seeing him back now. Yeah, fingers crossed he can play. And I think one thing Dan just mentioned there, which is a big thing, is the press. That's one thing I felt really let down by recently, is the way we haven't pressed teams. I look at a Newcastle team who are trying to play out from the back with Nick Pope and Fabian Schär,
And you think, can someone put him under a bit of pressure? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, you'd hope he's fit. You'd hope he's ready. I do still think that's an over-reliance that we have to fix in a transfer window soon. But yeah, he's the one player that you can really picture just beating someone in the middle of the pitch and threading a pass through. And hopefully that's something he can bring back because, you know, against Newcastle, against Inter Milan, our biggest goal threat looked like Gabby Magalhaes, our centre-back. And it's not good enough for an Arsenal team that want to win a title.
I agree.
It is complicated. Like, I think you can draw an unfavourable comparison even with Inter, because Inter made all these changes and they were fine because they have built a really deep squad in lots of areas of the pitch, and that's something that is a big asset they have. But at the same time, irreplaceable players are always irreplaceable.
Yeah.
It's the same reason that Manchester City are talking so much about, oh, Rodri's gone. You can have a great squad, but when you lose one of the best players in the world, it hurts you. Like, there's no way around that. I think both those things can be true at the same time.
So then obviously there's been plenty of discussion about the depth of the squad today. Have Arsenal's fringe players like Jesus and Sterling been good enough? And did we do enough in the transfer window?
I think you can question the transfer window. I certainly think the Sterling signing, especially following Enzo Maresca's comments about Sterling in the summer, I think he specifically said he's not a winger that I can use. And the big thing with Sterling for me, when he has been on the pitch, it's not doing our football off the ball. It's not tracking back. It's not leading the press. And that's something that really concerns me about Sterling. We know that his goals and assist numbers were half decent last season, but the fact that we're in November now, Arteta doesn't seem to trust him, even in a Champions League game. Bear in mind that he's cup tied on Sunday against Chelsea, so he can't play in that game. So you think surely he can take some minutes away from Martinelli or Saka last night. Doesn't get on the pitch. The Jesus thing, we know he's had his injuries. I do think with Jesus there is a kind of confusion with him positionally. Is he a winger? Is he a centre forward? Does he himself believe he can score goals the way we want him to? We know he's got a problem with finishing. I do have a slight overriding fear with Arteta in terms of keeping these players warm and not just losing very expensive attacking players. Jesus earns £275,000 a week. He's 27 years old. You can't sell him. Like, I'm telling you now, you cannot sell him. No one's buying that, especially with the injury record. So you have to get something out of it. And I am a bit concerned that there seems to have been a few of these players that we've had over the last 5 years, experienced attacking players who Arteta has a look at and then decides he can't get anything out of them. And we have to get rid. Willian, you know, Sterling looks like he's going to be another one like that. Trossard hasn't always looked happy in an Arsenal shirt, and Jesus now looks a bit lost on the pitch. And it's something I want to see from Arteta is keeping these forwards engaged and having a forward who might not start every game, but can still give you something off the bench, as Trossard was doing for a couple of years.
I think the summer transfer window is looking, incredibly underwhelming now. It really is. And I have to be real about this. I think the biggest compliment I can give Arsenal, however, is that I believe we've outgrown the likes of Zinchenko and Jesus. So just like Man City did. I think we're now at the stage where we need better than that coming off from the bench. So that's probably a big compliment I can give. However, when we were told to be excited, you'll be happy at the end of the window, and then it's Raheem the Dream is our actual main signing. That is a real underwhelming signing. And I think Mikel Arteta looks not to be too happy with him at the moment. He's not even getting minutes anymore. So I don't quite understand what's happening there. I look also at the team that has the smallest squad is the one that's going for the title, us. We have the smallest squad in the league, 22 players. 5 or 6 of which are incredibly injury prone. On the top of the fact we have 4 players that don't normally get injured in Ben White, Declan Rice, Saka, and of course Odegaard now, that on top of the 6, that means you've got about 12, 13 players at the moment to pick from, which is why we're talking about Lewis Skelly being on the bench, which is why we're playing a 16-year-old in goal, which is why we've got the likes of Nwaneri that people are talking about. And I don't think that's what we should be doing when we're going for a title. So I look at players now that are injury prone like Tomiyasu. What do we need to do there with his future? He's really got to prove that he can stay fit. Calafiori, we've mentioned, has just walked in. He now is injury prone. We've got Zinchenko who gets injured a lot. Jesus gets injured a lot. We haven't even mentioned Thomas Partey yet. So there's a real small squad here that we need to look at, and I don't think that's ready to go on all 4 fronts. And that was why the summer transfer window for me was not a very high mark.
I just ask because I feel like there's been a lot of conversation about the attacking creativity and the replacement for Odegaard. But is there a case that the bigger thing that was missed this summer was still just a number 9 who holds the number 9 position a bit differently to what Jesus does?
100%. And I think that we've been crying out for a number 9 for how long? I mean, we're 5 years in now with Mikel Arteta and he's still not bought a striker. He's bought Havertz, who he said was a midfielder. Now he's playing him up top. We've got Jesus, who, let's be real, is not number 9, and Man City never called him a number 9. Used to bring him on the wing most of the time, right? And the other attacking options, I think you said, were Willian, Sterling and Trossard, like Jacob said. That's
Which
mad.
Guardiola also didn't do at City for a long time, right? But then he found his number 9 and it
Well, he's now got the focal point as a number 9, you know?
I'd love to sit Guardiola down with a bottle of wine and say, honestly, did you want Haaland? Because stylistically, he's not what Guardiola has ever really pushed for. Whereas I think the interesting thing with Arteta, I remember links to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I remember links to Vlahovic. Kai Havertz is up top now. We clearly wanted Benjamin Sesko in the summer. Arteta's always wanted a big boy up front. That was something we went for in the summer. The first thing we did, we went for Sesko. We couldn't get him. We then went for Nico Williams. We couldn't get him. If I've got criticism of Arsenal's recruitment, I don't think it's that they don't believe we need another striker. I don't think that they ever wanted to go out and buy a Gyökeres. I don't think they wanted to spend 100 million quid and give 250 grand a week to someone who would be our quote-unquote number 9. I think they wanted backup to Havertz and maybe someone who could play there and Havertz could play as a left 8 and they could sort of join up together. If I've got a criticism of our recruitment, it's too Goldilocks sometimes. We have a target, a main target, we go for them, and if we don't get them, we go, well, we're just not going to do anything. And this is the season. And they've always spoken, Edu and Arteta, they've always spoken about a 5-point project. 5 points. They would say we're in stage 3, now we're in stage 4. This is stage 5. And by the way, you've won the lottery, Rodri got injured. Every prayer has been answered. I don't think the winner of the Premier League this season will win it with more than 85, 86 points. I don't think it's going to be another 95-point season. I think every team looks flawed in some way, and I think everyone's going to drop points. This is the opportunity. And my frustration is, OK, you went for your main target. When you couldn't get Sesko, why not someone else? Was there no one else? Was there no other tall forward who could have given you a bit of what he gave you? You didn't get Nico with it.
They did inquire about Osimhen, but Osimhen, everyone was put off by the money in the end. They did.
But is that enough though to have made an inquiry for a guy who went to Turkey in the end? Is it enough to make inquiries? Or this is what I'm saying. I know we want to talk about Edu a little bit later. Could there be someone else in that boardroom who's a little bit more pragmatic, who's maybe a bit more experienced, who says, if you can't have your dream guy, Mikel, could you have someone else?
So, Jacob, you're in luck because we're going to talk about Edu now. Perfectly segmented that in for me. So, off the pitch, it was announced earlier in the week that Arsenal sporting director Edu has resigned from his position and agreed a deal in principle to take up a role with Nottingham Forest. Nicky, this kind of came out of the blue, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Presumably not for Edu, but I think for most of us observing it, we didn't see this one coming. And even now, I think lots of us still have lots of questions about it because exactly as Jacob's just been talking about, this is someone who has been very much at the forefront of this project, which has got stages to it, which looks like it should be reaching its culmination. You would really think someone who's put that much into it would want to be there for achieving the target, which is winning a title, which hasn't happened yet. You would have thought that'd be something to keep him where he is. Now it sounds like the attraction of a multi-club project, that sort of bigger role where he can take on something that overarches several clubs might have been the draw, but we haven't heard that from Edu yet. So it's still a little bit of a mystery even as we're recording this.
Well, we'd say it's a mystery. There's good rumours that he's going to triple his wages.
Well, yeah.
So also, come on, if Inside Spurs offer Nicky triple the wages next week, I'm sure she's got a white shirt.
Well, apparently Arsenal made a counter offer, so.
But this is what I'm saying. They might have made a counter offer, but I think with Edu, if you think about where he came from, Brazil, right? He was never. I don't think he was ever a guy who really wanted to specialise in the transfer market. That's not what he was doing at Brazil, obviously. He's now going to go to Forest as a kind of CEO in a multi-club operation where, again, he's not going to be sat there going, right, what are the deals I want to do this summer? It's a different role. It's a promotion from his perspective. It's a bigger role. It's global. It's more money. And I'm sure Arsenal made a counter-offer. I don't imagine they offered to triple his wages. And we also know that Arsenal gave a CEO job elsewhere this summer. So I think the interesting thing, as Nicky said, is if he'd have gone this summer coming at the culmination of the 5-point project that they've spoken about for so long, you'd go, OK, yeah, it makes sense. It does feel strange now, but I think that's probably just driven by opportunity. It's probably because that job is up for grabs now. They've courted him since August. That's when the rumours first started with this. And he goes. And I think because of the context of when the news came, after a loss at Newcastle, we naturally go, oh, well, Edu's clearly had enough then. I don't think that's what's happened. No. I also remember quite a lot of transfer windows recently where there's been a lot of criticism of Edu. Whether that be the money he gets through sales, whether, as I say, there feels like there's a bit of a Goldilocks approach to recruitment, where if we don't get the main guy that Mikel really wants, there's no one else coming in. I think this is an opportunity for Arsenal to improve. I really do. And I'd love the idea of someone more experienced. We're a young group. You know, it's a young board at Arsenal. Richard Garlick, Arteta, they're fairly young guys. I'd love the idea of someone more experienced coming in who might challenge Mikel a little bit. Who might, some of the decisions we've spoken about with squad building. Was Mikel Merino the right signing for our midfield? Could it have been Merino plus one more? If we couldn't get the striker they really wanted at the beginning, was there anyone else they could have gone for? Was Sterling the smartest thing to do in terms of our wing positions? Like, was there someone who could have challenged Mikel on some of that? That's what I'd love moving forward.
Look, I agree with Jacob a lot on what he said there, and I think that potentially when you look at what Edu's leaving, he was the guy that brought Declan Rice into the club, and he brought us players like Ben White. Yeah, he also brought us Fabio Vieira, Nuno Tavares and Sammy Lokonga, right? So this guy, we will replace this guy. We will hopefully upgrade upon him as well. And I totally agree with what Jacob said in terms of experience, because at the moment it looks like a everything's very young at Arsenal, very inexperienced at Arsenal. Sometimes it's great because you can grow, you can flourish, but sometimes you need that experienced head. And I think that's potentially what is lacking at Arsenal right now. And I think that if we could get somebody in to replace Edu, that would be a huge upgrade, then it could be an opportunity for us to progress and see it as an exciting opportunity potentially.
Well, who knows? Let's watch this space, and Arsenal will be replacing Edu hopefully very soon. But let's move on now from Edu. Have you ever stopped to think what your favourite Arsenal home kit might be? Of all time, what your favourite kit is? Maybe the legendary Invincibles kit, perhaps the iconic 98 double winning shirt. Surely one from the original Adidas era is in with a shout? Well, talkSPORT's Harry Durham has the answer.
Yes, mate, welcome to Kitstery. My name is Harry Durham, and today I'm revealing the top 5 best Arsenal home kits of the Premier League era. Kicking off with kit number 5, 2011-2012. I absolutely adore this football kit. I'm not even an Arsenal fan, so there's no bias here. I want to take our attention to the crest. All white. You've got the classic Arsenal with the cannon inside of it, and almost like that Fred Perry element going around it. If people don't know and you're not a proper football fan, Arsenal fans will know this as well. A bit of knowledge, a bit of trivia for you. This was celebrating 125 years of Arsenal Football Club. If we go down into the body of the kit, the red, obviously synonymous with Arsenal. You're not going to have a different home kit in a different colour. They're not Cardiff. They're not Vincent Tan, for goodness sake. Fly Emirates going across there. Nice, decent space in between the Nike and also the crest as well. The collar, simple. Red going round. White sleeves, clean cut. Almost got a little bit of a vintage feel about it, mate. Just remember, I was a teenager when this kit came out. I believe it was the away kit that was on the cover of FIFA 12. Jack Wilshere. I just spat somewhere over there as well. Gervinho arriving in the summer of 2011. The return of Thierry Henry. The goal against Leeds in the FA Cup. The 5-3 win over Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. Finishing third in the table. Robin van Persie scoring 30 goals in the league and then leaving for Manchester United. Who could forget the 8-2 away loss at Old Trafford? Of course, they were wearing the away shirt, but that happened in this season. Number 4, 2012 to 2014. This kit bled over 2 seasons with Arsenal. I love it. I love this kit so much, mate. Who does this kit remind me of? Oxlade-Chamberlain, Vermaelen, Mikel Arteta, the current Arsenal gaffer. There's a lot of similarities with the previous kit. Obviously, it's not 125 years. We've got the simple Arsenal crest there, the Nike tick, and the Fly Emirates as well. They substituted the collar with a nice navy blue, and look at the sleeves. The white, the classic white sleeves, accompanied by a red and a navy blue stripe. Love, love, love that attention to detail. In the summer of 2012, we saw the arrivals of Podolski, Giroud and Cazorla into the Premier League. With Robin van Persie leaving for Manchester United, Jack Wilshere was given the number 10 shirt of Arsenal. In this beautiful shirt, Arsenal broke a huge record in the League Cup. Beating Reading 7-5 at the Medeski Stadium, it was absolute scenes. I think they were 4-0 down at half-time. No Hunt was a goal scorer for Reading. Abu Diaby did his ACL. Let's pull one out for Abu Diaby. What could have been? Shame, really. The Gunners finished 4th in the Premier League, 1 point ahead of their local rivals Tottenham, who came in 5th. Enjoy the Europa League and Thursday nights. Oi, mate, I'm giving away this Arsenal kit that's seen on screen. If you can guess which former Arsenal player's name is printed on the back of the shirt, you could win it. To be in with a chance of winning, all you need to do is comment below with your guess and the hashtag WinGoonerKit. Entries close at midnight on Thursday the 31st of October. 18 plus and UK only. T's and C's apply. 1992 to 1994, we're going back to the classic days of the Premier League, the formation of the greatest league on planet Earth. Adidas. Classic Arsenal crest. JVC, arguably the best shirt sponsor that Arsenal have ever had. Arsenal fans, get in the comments section, let me know. I know what the answer's going to be. What is the best shirt sponsor you ever had on a kit? Ian Wright, Paul Merson, Alan Smith wore this shirt. If you pay close attention to this, it almost looks like an apron going down. Look at it. Look at the design. It's actually wild if you think about it. The red, the blue, and the red again on the sleeves, wrapping all the way around with that white holding centre stage on the sleeves yet again. Look closely to the finer details in the body of the kit, by the way. You will see 3 faint stripes going down there. Of course, it's an Adidas kit, and Adidas need to leave their mark in as many places as they can. I mentioned the white sleeves, but the white also goes down right there, that little apron bit, and you've got the Adidas logo right there. Just like the stripes on the sleeves as well, where you've got that double red and that navy. Look at the collar, how it goes down into that V-neck as well. You've got exactly the same collars there, letting it flourish, letting it look beautiful. So that neck looks lovely, like you want to kiss it. Mwah. Oh, and before I forget, the Arsenal crest as well. It's not the one that we see today. This is pure vintage classic. The white background with the red dots and also that red cannon as well. Arsenal finished 10th in the 92-93 season and then 4th the year after. 92-93 saw Arsenal come 1 point behind Man City, who finished 9th in the table. How times have changed. In this kit and across the 2 seasons, Ian Wright was the main man up top, scoring 65 goals in all competitions from 1992 to 1994. What a man. Though Arsenal came 10th in the 92-93 season, they did secure an FA Cup and League Cup double and qualified for the Cup Winners' Cup. Young people are probably like, what's the Cup Winners' Cup? 94 to 96. Oh, it's getting tasty, baby. We've got a collar, a proper polo top collar, and that is my favourite design with a football kit. If you have a classic collar, classy. Professional. You know you've got the absolute swaz on the ball. You know you're going to have the cleanest touch. You know you belong to the streets. You know that whatever you do will be seen down at Hackney Marshes all the way to any AstroTurf across Britain. Sticking with the JVC, you got those zigzags going down through the body of the kit there. Gorgeous. It's those subtle designs that make them so iconic and so memorable to the fans and even people that don't support that football club. You've got half and half on the sleeves. It's not all white like we've seen with previous Arsenal kits. You've got half red and half white on the top there. Look at this touch on the Nike as well. I loved this during the 1990s where you had the Nike tick, then you had Nike written out just above it in that little space there. Bring it back. What I've got to say about the crest on this one, the nice shield going around it in navy blue, and you've got the Gunners written just above there as well. If you look into actually the crest there, we've got Arsenal in gold, the red, the dots, the stars. It reminds me of Christmas. It always has. Whenever I've seen someone walking around with it, and I've always seen that Arsenal crest, it reminds me of Christmas with the red and the gold. Ho, ho, ho! I think we can all agree that the 1990s was the best era for football shirts. Music and movies played a hand in that too. The Shawshank Redemption in that year. Pulp Fiction. Oasis releasing Definitely Maybe. It was a seriously special time. The Premier League saw the Flying Dutchman arrive on these shores. Dennis Bergkamp is here at Highbury. 94-95 was forgettable for Arsenal in this shirt, finishing 12th in the Premier League. Of course, Ian Wright was up to his same old tricks, having a laugh in front of goal, scoring a combined 53 goals in all competitions from 94 to 96. One thing to remember, just because you've got a good football kit doesn't mean that it's going to translate onto the pitch. And I know I mentioned the zigzags and they look familiar. That's because they were on the 23-24 kit. And finally, number 1, the best Arsenal home kit of the Premier League era. 2005 2006. You know I'm right. You know I'm right. This is the best shirt that Arsenal have ever released. Forget about the Premier League in their history. The burgundy, the gold, it goes hand in hand with one another. It is beautiful. It is something that you will see in the Football Museum if it's not already there up in Manchester already. People say hang it in the Louvre, and I think it's cliched, but Arsene Wenger, the Frenchman, Thierry Henry, hang it in the Louvre. It should have a special place in the Louvre right in Paris. A nice folded over collar. Of course you've got the O2 in there, which I think O2 gives JVC a good run for its money, but it's not coming close to it. Of course, it was the final year at the legendary Highbury as Arsenal said goodbye to their North London home, moved a couple of streets away and went into the Emirates. Gold going round the Arsenal crest like we've seen with the Nike tick and also the O2 shirt sponsor. 1913 to 2006, paying homage to that classic stadium. With Arsenal saying goodbye to Highbury, they needed to release a special kit, and I'll tell you what, they smashed it out of the park with this. Going away from the traditional red and white, giving it that classic burgundy and gold, that vintage feel. You feel like you went back in time when you saw this shirt. If there was a shirt to remember Highbury and how old that place was, it was this kit. Oozing in class, the old school pictures inside the marble halls of Highbury. The squad's dressed old fashioned in old tweed suits and also tweed hats as well. On the pitch, 4th in the Premier League under Arsene Wenger. Champions League runner-ups to Barcelona, but remember they were wearing that yellow away kit in the final. Thierry Henry scoring goals for fun, 33 goals in all competitions. And who could forget one of the most iconic Premier League images of all time? Thierry Henry kissing the Highbury turf on the final ever game that was played there. Arsenal 4, Wigan 2, Thierry Henry hat-trick. Thank you very much for watching. Those were the top 5 best Arsenal home kits of the Premier League era. Agree with me? Don't agree with me? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section just down below. And of course, please remember to like and subscribe. Plenty more kit videos coming very soon.
Right, it's time to talk about a huge game this weekend as we take the short trip across London to Stamford Bridge. As ever on Inside Gooners, we like to get some insight into our opposition, and who better than the Inside Chelsea regular, Kwaku Afari. But before that, what is everyone's favourite Arsenal home kit? And Kwaku, you're getting this as well.
It's so hard to separate the kit from the time and the memories. For me, it's 2000 to 2002 with Freddie Ljungberg and the red hair and the Dreamcast across it. We never even had a Dreamcast. My cousin did, so I don't know, it makes me think of a certain happy chapter, I think, for Arsenal.
Home kits, for me, it has to be the Red Currant 2006, last year at Highbury. Iconic, unique, and if I'm honest with you, I remember Lasagna Gate very well, so yeah.
For me, 2010, 2011 is a really nice Nike kind of like hoop kit. Very simple, but I always remember Jack Wilshere in that kit.
Yeah, you put me on the spot here, picking a favourite Arsenal. I'd probably say it's late 90s JVC Nike kit. It had like the white trim on the side. Proper kit, obviously. That year, everyone remembers the treble for Man United, but that kit was decent for Arsenal.
And actually, as we slip into Chelsea, Dan, what's my favourite kit and who's on the back?
Well, I know who's on the back of it because it's obviously Olivier Giroud. I mean, you have an obsession with him, so, big up to you.
Yeah, so mine's a 2012, 2014 with the nice blue collar. Okay. But yes, Olivier Giroud is firmly on the back of mine. And with that, let's move into the Chelsea game. I thought that was great. Kwaku, you must feel good then. This is a good time to play Arsenal?
It's never a good time to play Arsenal. I don't want to fall into that trap. There's that wounded animal complex that you have to deal with when you're dealing with a side that are very, very good on paper and they are a great football inside, but they've struggled for results recently. You look at the Inter Milan game and I feel like Arsenal were unlucky in that game. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the recent Premier League fixtures for Arsenal, the loss against Bournemouth was a crushing one. Then the draw against Liverpool, on the face of it at the time, was a good point, considering you had injuries and suspensions. But then the loss against Newcastle was one of the poorest Arsenal performances I've seen in a long, long time under Mikel Arteta. And so Chelsea are, as a Chelsea fan base, we are bolstered by the fact that you guys are struggling, but are well aware that last season at Stamford Bridge, we outplayed you. We were 2-0 up and then let it slip and you came back. And I think Declan Rice was very important to that draw for Arsenal. And then at the Emirates, you turned us over and beat us 5-0. So we are well aware of your qualities and how dangerous you are as an opposition. But if there is a good time to play Arsenal, it's right now because I feel like you're lacking that fluidity going forwards. it doesn't seem that connected. And off the field as well, for the first time in a long time at Arsenal, there are some murmurings and there's a bit of discontent. So I am optimistic about the fixture on the weekend, but I wouldn't say it's the best time to play Arsenal.
So then where do we think the game will be won and lost?
Oh, midfield. I just don't really like the composition of your midfield in the moment. Again, it's too early to judge Mikel Merino. I've seen obituaries being written about him in terms of his Arsenal career, but it's very early. He's still a player in his infancy in terms of in an Arsenal shirt. Declan Rice didn't play yesterday against Inter Milan, didn't start. We'll see if he comes back into the game. Odegaard, I think, will start, and he was dangerous against us at the Emirates last season. So I think midfield is where we're strongest at the moment with that Lavia and Caicedo duo. But again, when Arsenal are on song, they're so difficult to beat. So it depends on what Arsenal turn up, I think, primarily. But again, what type of Chelsea team turns up. Because against Manchester United on the weekend, Chelsea were poor, in my opinion.
So then I'm going to open this up to the rest of the panel. How are we feeling for the weekend?
Look, Cole Palmer is a player I really rate. And I feel like Kwaku, please tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I do feel like in the bigger games, he's been a little bit quiet. Now, I don't want to talk too soon, but when he has a more of a cue game, Chelsea don't quite look on song. Now, I will say that in terms of the midfield, I agree with what Kwaku said in terms of the domination in midfield might win this game. I actually think Chelsea have been incredible in midfield. I think Lavia and Caicedo are looking very, very good. Caicedo has been superb. I think Cole Palmer, we all know what threat he can cause, and I think that Arsenal have probably looked pretty lacklustre in midfield so far this season. So I'm going to be interested to see what happens there. But I actually look at Cole Palmer and I just wonder how he's going to deal with this season, because there was a lot of comparisons to Bukayo Saka from Cole Palmer, and Saka started to get double teamed on. Saka started to get kicked quite a lot. I didn't give him much space. And now people are doing that with Cole Palmer. And there's been some games against Man City, against Manchester United, against Liverpool, hopefully against Arsenal, where he's been quite cute. And we've managed to see a different side to Chelsea without him in the side. So I think that for me is key. I think it's going to be a very close game, I must say.
But there were rumours that he hasn't been in training.
Similar to Declan Rice, though. Declan Rice didn't make the trip last night to Inter Milan. So I think both teams have got injured. Where I find the Chelsea game really interesting from an Arsenal perspective is what they do at left-back. I was really surprised they didn't play Cucurella there for the Man United game. And Cucurella's been happy hunting for Saka. Saka's had some good times against him. But I tell you what, if you try and play Reece James as an inverted fullback against Saka... Listen, we talk about Cole Palmer turning up in big games. Saka loves a Super Sunday. Saka loves a 4:30 on a Sunday. He turned up injured against Liverpool, 3 touches, pulls the ball out of the air, nutmegs Andy Robertson, top corner. That's the difference for me. It's going to be about which big players want to stand up. I have to say, there was one player who really did impress me when we beat Chelsea at the Emirates last season. It was Nico Jackson. I thought Jackson ran off Saliba really well, and for me, I think that's going to be the big thing, is can we cope with Chelsea? Can we keep them quiet? Can we defend well? And then can we exploit their defence? Because I think if there's a weakness in that Chelsea team, it is the defence.
Yeah, I agree. The Chelsea defence is our weakness. Goalkeeper, it's been well documented how much Robert Sanchez has struggled. That's a conundrum that we need to figure out. But when I look at, and I do agree with you to an extent, people are trying to goad me into saying that Cole Palmer is the best player in the Premier League. I'm not there yet, because like you say, 4:30 on a Sunday when everybody's watching, that's when you need to turn up. Yeah. How many times have you seen Mo Salah do it when he's being double teamed, when everybody knows what he's going to do, but he still delivers and still does it? Like you said, Bukayo Saka's been doing it for the last couple of seasons. I don't agree with the notion that Cole Palmer doesn't turn up for the big games. Last season against Man City, he scored. Last season against Arsenal, I know it's from the penalty spot, he scored. Against Manchester United, he scored in the final of the Euros. So this is a man that does turn up for the big occasions, but this season, on Super Sundays, when everybody's watching, he hasn't delivered to the extent that he has.
Do you think that's a pressure thing, bro? That's what I'm getting at. Do you think there's now the pressure of, look, all eyes on Cole Palmer? Last season, he just lit it up. There was no pressure on him. There was like, wow, this guy's absolutely lit the league up. Now the pressure's like, oh, let's see what Cole Palmer's do. Everyone's changed their tactics a bit. Let's put 2 man on this guy now. Do you know what I'm saying?
Not to get lost in the tactical weeds, but if you look at Chelsea, when we play that inverted fullback, that fullback pushes into midfield, and when Enzo plays, it means Enzo pushes up to be that dual 10 next to Cole Palmer, so it gives the opposition more attacking problems to think about. Whereas when Enzo doesn't play, we've got that strong double pivot of Caicedo and Lavia. They're less comfortable pushing into that number 10 position. So Cole Palmer's isolated in terms of trying to be that creative spark for Chelsea. And so I do think it will be Lavia and Caicedo, but then it gives Cole Palmer problems, and the top players figure out those issues. And I feel like he is on his way to becoming a superstar. in the Premier League right now, he's one of the best players, but he's not the best until you do it week in, week out against biggest opposition. And this season against, like you say, Man City, against Manchester United, against Liverpool, he hasn't been at his best. But I do expect him to turn up at Stamford Bridge.
He's a quality player. I'm not dissing him. He's a top talent. So
Kwaku, I have to remind you of an absolutely stunning Arsenal record.
You have to.
Yes, I have to. It's stunning, so I have to.
Go on.
So Arsenal have gone unbeaten at Stamford Bridge since 2018.
Yeah, it's weird with Chelsea because back in the day, we had decent records against Manchester United, against Arsenal. In recent seasons, we've struggled against those two sides. And Arsenal are a side that can pose Chelsea problems. And like I say, last season, we were really good against Arsenal for the first 70 minutes and then it all just turned around off the back of a Robert Sanchez error. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. And so I'm very wary when taking on Arsenal. I remember a few years ago where it was Smith Rowe and Saka that came to the fore and beat us at Stamford Bridge. And so for some reason, we've had trouble against Arsenal in recent seasons. But I do think this is a different Arsenal side. I wouldn't say that you've sold your soul, but you've gone in a different tactical direction when it comes to the way that you play football. For the longest time, I admit as a Chelsea fan, I thought that Arsenal were the best footballing side in the country in terms of I enjoyed watching them the most. They took over that mantle from Liverpool. But this season, it's just been a different Arsenal side. And I do think that you've struggled to find that creative spark without Odegaard. We saw a cameo from Odegaard last night in the Inter Milan game. I do think he'll start against Chelsea. And when we lost against you at the Emirates last season, that midfield three of Rice, Partey and Odegaard, scary. Honestly, scary. And I saw it in its fullest form. And if those three play, we've got a big issue. I don't know if they will. And on your right-hand side, you caused us issue with Ben White, Odegaard on the right side of the midfield, and then obviously Bukayo Saka. So that's where I'm really worried about it. The record at Stamford Bridge, hopefully this is the week or this is the weekend that we change it. But I'm not going to put my house on it. I'm not going to put my house on that.
Nicely put. So then, Nicky, just before we wrap up, give us some positive final remarks on the game for Sunday.
Oh, I don't know if this is positive or not. What's in my head is just the psychology of the game. And I think that one thing that I remember thinking for such a long time when Chelsea used to feel like they had the up on Arsenal was it always just felt like they were going to physically dominate. It always felt like they were going to come in and they were going to bully Arsenal around. And the shoe is on the other foot now. So I suppose that's the positive side of what we talked about earlier in the show is maybe a negative. There's too much focus on the physicality, but there is something in that. If you're going to go somewhere like Stamford Bridge, you're going to go there with the confidence that actually we're not going to let ourselves get bullied. We're not going to get overwhelmed by a home crowd. We're going to come in here and try and take the game to you.
there was a time that Mikel Arteta was under pressure and he bounced back with a win against Chelsea.
Yeah, it's worrying. It is worrying.
Well, we will wait and see what the weekend holds. And that is all we've got time for this week. A huge thanks to Nicky Bandini, Dan Potts, Jacob Hawley and Kwaku Afari. We'll see you next week. And remember, trust the process now more than ever.